大怪盗アルゼーヌ・ルパンが残した不思議な宝物ルパンコレクションがギャングラーに奪われた。失ったものを取り戻すために戦う怪盗、世界の平和を守るために戦う警察、君はどっちを応援する？
Hello and welcome to LupinRecap vs. PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I'm your host, Lokamasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
We're on week 2 of Three Houses, which means that I no longer have an appropriate joke, but I haven't thought of anything new because of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
But we are a Lupin Ranger vs. Pot Ranger recap podcast. Today we're talking about episode 36. But before that, let's talk a bit about the trope early installment weirdness. To sum it up, for people who don't browse TV tropes because they're actually sensible, early installment weirdness is weird stuff that happens towards the beginning of a work of fiction where they haven't figured everything out yet. It mostly happens in serialized stuff like TV shows, comic books, things that come out in installments. It's less likely to happen in a single novel, because that gets released all at once, even though it's written bit by bit. It's sort of just a thing that I find kind of fun to watch for. Like, going back to the start of something, I always enjoy waiting to see, alright, and where are the things where they clearly haven't figured out what they're doing yet? Like when you go back and watch early Dragon Ball Z, and Goku isn't a terrible father. It didn't happen until Cell, and then Toriyama went, well, I can't go back.
There's early JoJo where first off there wasn't stands, and then when there were stands they were just, I don't know, this one does fire real well.
This one's fast, and it has a sword. This one can punch.
Well, I mean, this one can punch will always be a standard. It's just punch plus something else.
Mm-hmm. Except for Star Platinum at first.
Well, I guess Star Platinum is punch plus fingers.
Again, we talked about this. The initial version of the world had all the powers of the Tarot stance, so what was it going to do for Star Platinum? It's just going to punch someone out?
Alright, time for this power that you never would have guessed I have. Having two very bulky arms. Punching!
But yeah, it's something that's going to come up in the episode right now. It's always hard to think of examples of this, because it's not always something worth talking about. You just kind of go watch the early version of something and go, huh, that's weird.
Remember when Final Fantasy 1 was basically just a D&D campaign?
I don't know if Final Fantasy really counts, because, it changes so much in each incarnation. There is no...
Yeah.
It's not standard enough to have weirdness.
But also, there are at least usually characters to the main characters.
Right.
Final Fantasy 1 is just, here's this D&D campaign, and also I have a really cool plot twist planned. You're in a time loop. Wapow.
Yeah. 1 and 3 are the only Final Fantasies without characters.
Oh yeah, 3 exists.
It's weird that, so much of Final Fantasy's storytelling comes from 2.
I know.
It was such a problem, mechanically, but if you look at how they deal with, escalating threat, moving through party members, that keeps happening in Final Fantasy games.
Yep.
Not a Final Fantasy game until at least one town has been wiped off the map.
Really, you can't stop wiping out towns. Sometimes towns were bad in Final Fantasy 1. I mean, just look at Melmond. But other than that, yeah, just can't go without destroying a town. Maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if it reaches 3, it's usually 3+.
Mm-hmm. And if it's Final Fantasy 2, we just wipe out all of them. Just fucking go to town. Town. Just get rid of everything.
You can't go to town because they're gone.
Mm-hmm. But if I had to give... What might be my favorite example is, we've talked about this off the podcast, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, in, the pitch Bible, the initial, drafts of the show, Uncle Iroh was going to actually be evil.
Yeah, just imagine that world.
So, yeah, he was going to reveal that he taught Zuko wrong on purpose, because his brother, as a joke, no, because Ozai told him to. But when you watch the episode where he's captured by the Earth soldiers, you can kind of see that. You can tell that the initial draft was, here is this harmless old man. Psych, he's actually a dangerous villain. Not, here is this harmless old man. He's super tough, but he's still a kindly old man. The specific example I think of is when they say, like, the Dragon of the West. It cuts to his face and he's, like, glaring at them, and the music is ominous. It's not like, and here is my greatest failure scene. It's, you're figuring out who I really am scene.
But eventually they changed to make it fitting by just saying, that's just what he does when backed into a corner. You know, sometimes the situation just calls for him getting swole while in prison.
And that's, like, far from the weirdest example. It's just interesting how such a drastic change was made, like, probably after they started the show, but they were able to make it work so well.
Yeah. And, of course, if we're talking about the general Avatar series, early weirdness, that kind of describes Korra Season 1 pretty well, for being honest.
Yeah. Hey, how are we going to write this Korra series? Oh shit, I thought you knew.
The kids like love triangles, right?
Fucking just nothing but love triangles. That was, like, that got our fan base the most animated in the last show. It's what's going to be good about this show.
Oh, true.
Once they stopped talking about romance, Korra got so much better.
Slightly. Like, it died down in Season 2, but Season 2 had problems for other reasons.
Season 2 still had Korra Mako stuff.
Yeah.
Season 3 is when they, like, completely shunted it. It was gone.
And the moment it was gone, it was great.
Yeah. But I have to say the joke answer of, like, a weird character thing. In Season 1, Zuko laughs at the pirates when they get their ship stolen. That is the only time he laughs in the entire series.
He has precisely one thing he finds humorous, and that's pirates having their ship stolen. Specifically that.
It's a fucking Nelson ha ha in, like, the 5th or 6th episode. And that's the only time Zuko laughs, and it's weird. But before we move on, I do want to say the really cool stuff is when you can, like, see how it changed. Like, Dragon Ball Z Vegeta's early characterization is nothing like his later characterization.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is, like, you know, in the back, he's like, sure of himself, but in a way that's not, like, covering up massive insecurities. And then as soon as he loses to Goku, it's just all mad all the time.
He was mad and angry.
But you can, like, actually track the change and go, okay, so that's why that changed in that way. It's not just a case of they hadn't figured out what they were doing yet. It's actual, like, development. And that's interesting. I would say, like, a lot of the game mechanics in Fire Emblem also, but, like, they're being reintegrated now. Like, Weapon Triangle, gone.
Until you
Wasn't there to
skills.
begin with, and it's not there now.
Well, now you just gotta get skills first.
But unless you have some stuff you want to talk about, you probably don't, because I sprung this on you 5 seconds before we started recording, because I thought of it 10 seconds before we started recording. I've also been playing Three Houses.
Mega Man 01 was way different than the other games. Just look at it. There you go. That's pretty weird.
A lot of the video game stuff is just numbers. Like, Sonic 1 has 6 Chaos Emeralds. Mega Man 1 has 6 Robot Masters. They just didn't have the numbers right in the first game.
Alright, we fucked up the numbers. Turns out kids like the number 7, not the number 6. And now that we have 7, Sonic can turn supersonic.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 36, Shoot the Bomb. Sakia, with a gun. The cops get into position to raid the hideout of this week's Ganglar. Said Ganglar, in the midst of his work, stands up and declares himself a genius. The Pat Rangers rush in and Kaisatsu change. But Pekka Zappelli remains confident in prowess and plan. Unfortunately, his name is probably the best part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Zappelli begins firing needles from his shoulders, which the Pat Rangers scramble to dodge. Not having landed a blow, Zappelli decides to take a moment and scan the room. His computer vision highlights various objects until it discovers the perfect trajectory to catch the Pat Rangers off guard. He fires one needle, which ricochets about the room, until it hits Nigo, who is knocked to the floor. Zappelli tells him not to slip up and runs off. but Nigo refuses to give up and gives chase. Thanks to his speed, Nigo has the perfect opportunity to make an effective shot. Except he slips up on a pipe, and his shot winds up hitting Ichigo. Zeppeli laughs and leaves for real. Nigo apologizes, but almost hits Ichigo again while bowing. Nobody in the main team is pleased with Nigo's performance, but X seems to figure out what's happened. Anyone hit by Zeppeli's needle will start slipping up constantly. X then looks over Zeppeli's design documents and seems to have a bad feeling about them. Roll the intro. We return to Sakia sadly sitting on a bench, tapping a can of soda. A man walks up to him and asks him what's wrong. Sakia tells him he keeps messing up at work and that he's getting chewed out. This very trustworthy man hands him a necklace which supposedly calms someone down when they get angry. He tells Sakia that it's a free sample, but Sakia takes 2 more anyway.
Like, incredibly suspicious. Like, it's a necklace. What do you mean, a free sample? It's not how necklaces work, bro.
Yeah, let me sample this necklace. Alright, I got a free necklace. Goodbye. I mean, if somebody wants to give me necklace samples, that's fine. And wouldn't you know it, the camera cuts to this man's face, only for that to fade to a picture of him from Kogure. Who could have guessed that this man was a ganglar? Anyone but Sakia, basically.
I do appreciate that, rather than try and, like, play up the hidden nature of the ganglars and their human disguises, they just go for more interesting human designs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever, who cares about keeping it a secret? Just make him human. Just make him ridiculous.
Yeah, they're gonna be revealed in 10 seconds anyway. What little time they have a disguise on, it should be memorable. Anyway, Kogure tells the juror trio that their next target has the collection piece Le Homme Sage, which increases somebody's intelligence. Kairi rudely says that it's a piece that Umika could use, which she nods along to. Kogure tells them not to underestimate Zeppeli, and presumably they go along their way. Back at Police HQ, Kaitro puts on the necklace that Sakia got earlier. Sakia says that it's a necklace that helps one recover from exhaustion, after nearly messing up and telling him what it actually does. Good job there, Sakia.
Which is weird, because, like, you'd think the Keishiro would just want anger management necklace also.
Yeah. But hey, you
like,
just
he's not really addressed his anger in a way that implies he, wants to solve it, but, like, I don't see why telling him, like, hey, this is a necklace that'll help you chill out and deal with your anger is just something you just can't tell him.
At the very least, you'd think Sakia would at least realize that lying would just make it worse, but nah, whatever. It's his grave.
Mm-hmm.
Kaitro asks how he's supposed to know if it's working, to which Sakia tells him that a piece of cake he was saving, which was thought to have been eaten by Hilltop, was actually eaten by himself. Kaitro turns around, murder in his eyes, and begins scolding Sakia, only for the necklace to activate, doing the impossible and calming him on the spot.
You know what would have been great? I know they throw Hilltop under the bus, but what if they blamed it on the Phantom Thieves? Remember that slice of cake I told you Lupin Red broke into and stole? I think we joked about that. I'm just like, Lupin Red snatching snacks away from Keijiro.
That does sound familiar, but I do want to see it.
I wish they just went full absurd with this. Instead of blaming it on Hilltop, just been like, and then Lupin Blue threw open the fridge and stole your cake.
Also, speaking of sweets, this clearly displays Sakia's incompetence in comparison to Tsukasa, because, like, you could just give Kaitro sweets. That calms him down instantly, actually.
Yeah, Tsukasa had the solution back in episode 1.
Just stuff a cake into his mouth, then you don't have to tell him about the cake you ate. Kaitro tells Sakia to apologize to Hilltop, and turns around to get back to work. A now extremely chipper Kaitro is just doing his thing. While Sakia decides to try it too, since it worked so well. I love his face acting so much.
Yeah, Chill Keiichiro is great. I also kind of like that Sakia wants the anger management necklace too. Like, he's not just using this to get out of, like, dealing with problems for him.
Yeah, he got...
Like, he can make it easier on everyone else too if he also has better anger management skills.
He did get 3 necklaces.
Mm-hmm.
But after he puts it on, he realizes he never gets mad. But when he tries to take it off, he struggles so much that his hand slips and he knocks Kaiichiro's head into the table. Once again, Kaiichiro is calmed by the necklace and goes back to work. Tsukasa, in horror, mentions that Kaiichiro is very level-headed today. Elsewhere, Jim Carter is looking over the document that Noel recovered from Zeppeli. He believes the machine would be designed to transfer energy, but can't figure out exactly what it is. But nonetheless, Jim activates his special move and starts typing quickly to figure out just what this machine could be used for. There was like a shining effect in everything before he just aura-aura'd that keyboard. Back in hell, the usual suspects are discussing Zeppeli and his finished project. Gauche, of course, is very interested in anything that involves unethical science. Degranio, meanwhile, is amused at the idea of a device that will kill humans with their own emotions. And speaking of which, we return to the HQ, where Jim has finally discovered that Zeppeli's device is a bomb that explodes if people get angry. If enough anger is gathered, the bomb will explode, and it's very worth noting that an extremely good Jim-based animation is used to display this information.
Mm-hmm.
Just a number of Jims getting real mad and then exploding.
Well, as long as he doesn't hand these necklaces out to people who get angry a lot, we'll be fine. And then it just cuts to him at, like, an esports convention.
Noel then shows them a diagram of the device used to collect the anger. The very necklace that Sakia brought in. With one on Kaiichiro, it's a wonder they haven't already exploded. Tsukasa attempts to take off the necklace, nearly choking Kaiichiro in the process, but as we already know, the necklace can't be removed. Noel offers to track the emotional energy to find the bomb, while Tsukasa leaves to find Zeppeli. When Kaiichiro and Sakia attempt to follow, she tells them to stay behind since Kaiichiro gets mad easily, and Sakia won't stop slipping up. After a commercial break, the Phantom Thieves look over the plaza where Zeppeli is doing business. Blue notices the necklaces on everyone in the area, and Umika spots the Ganglar, in the midst of making quite a few sales. But a calling card ruins his disguise and any chances he had of handing out more of his necklaces. The Phantom Thieves make their entrance and Kaito change before they run in and the scene changes. At HQ, Sakia is lamenting his inability to do anything. He attempts to give Kaiichiro some tea, but trips and spills it all over him. But Kaiichiro is in the middle of meditating, and despite his near anger, he manages to stop himself before the necklace takes it. Kaiichiro makes a comment about a quiet state of mind making even flames feel cool, which gives Jim an idea. Meanwhile, Noel tells Sakia he should probably sit tight because he's still slipping up. But Sakia laments feeling like dead weight. Thankfully, Jim has spotted a rise in heat in a particular area, which is likely where the energy is being transmitted. Unfortunately, other than Noel, the least qualified people are here to save the day. Kaiichiro tells Noel to figure out how to stop the bomb and goes off with Sakia, sure that he's used to Sakia's slip-ups enough that he won't get mad. Back at the fight scene, Blue throws Zeppeli down some stairs. Various fighting continues until Yellow opens Zeppeli's safe, 014, and recovers his collection piece, rendering him dumb as bricks. Blue
Did seeing a Zeppeli get thrown downstairs give you, like, flashbacks?
Yes.
Just, oh no, that rock! It's coming off of the wall!
Blue shoots him to the ground and proceeds to equip magic, while Yellow equips scissors. Red equips Splash, and all three prepare to finish Zeppeli off. Only for Sango to run in and interrupt them. She trips
Part of
them.
the episode rules.
She trips them all up and gets them to back off, while the scene switches back to the plaza. Kaichiro and Sakia arrive on the scene, and genius Sakia decides to just shout about how they think there's a bomb in the area. Apparently the slip-ups aren't just physical. People begin to panic, and tension rises in the ensuing chaos. Kaichiro tries his best to stay calm, and to help, he finds a box full of water and dumps it on his head. Now, calm, Kaichiro charges off.
I gotta say, having a bunch of water dumped on my head would make me the opposite of calm.
Maybe it was just a really hot day, and it was just really nice cool water. Going with a whole field day effect. Back at the fight scene, the Lupin Rangers are mad at Sango, especially since the Pat Rangers are normally the ones trying to kill the Ganglars in the first place. But Sango tells them that she needs to figure out where a bomb is, so Zeppeli needs to live for just a while longer. But despite being a dumbass now, Zeppeli realizes this is the perfect chance to attack. We cut back to the odd couple, still looking for the bomb. Sakia is sad because he let Zeppeli get away. We then cut again to Zeppeli, who's bragging about how he wouldn't tell them about the bomb. Red then says he'd have to slip up pretty badly to do that, and of course, Sangu immediately figures out what to do. She rushes in and starts fighting until she goads Zeppeli into firing his shoulder spikes. Sangu then runs behind Yellow, who protects herself with her shield. Sangu then pushes Yellow ever so slightly, angling the shield in just the right way to reflect a needle back into Zeppeli. Now, even dumber, Zeppeli is unable to prevent himself from blabbing about the bomb's location with minimal interrogation.
It is wild how good Tsukasa is in this episode.
I know.
She's like not in the first half, and then she shows up to the fight ready to go.
One might argue that this is a Sakia episode, but honestly, Tsukasa still steals the show here.
This is like the true Pot Ranger episode. This is about all three of them.
Yeah, it is. But more on that later. Sangu kicks Zeppeli and tells Sakia where the bomb is. When Kaichiro and Sakia approach a nearby rooftop, the bomb is already at 80%. Noel tells them that there's an antenna on the bomb and destroying that will stop it. But there's no time to get any closer. They need to deactivate the bomb by shooting the antenna from the rooftop that they're on. Sakia, apparently more of a sharpshooter than Kaichiro, is still under the effects of Zeppeli's slip-up needle and is worried about actually stopping the bomb. Kaichiro tells him that if he wants to earn praise, then he needs to start having faith in himself. And so, Sakia decides to give the shot a try. Hikaisatsu changes and...
He decides to give it a shot?
Hikaisatsu changes, and meanwhile, Sangu continues her fight against Zeppeli. It's not going too well, though, as her gun is kicked from her hand. Sakia is given Biker in the meantime and prepares to shoot. Red then steps in the fight with Zeppeli and tells Sangu that that even though they have no clue what's going on, they can handle the fight from there. All three Lupin Rangers continue their special attack from earlier, and Zeppeli is blown in half. With his power now deactivated, Sakia is able to make the shot just in time. He collapses in relief, and Kaichiro thanks him. And apparently, that's the best compliment he could ask for. Tsukasa also collapses, but the Lupin Rangers are fine. They don't know enough about the situation to be stressed about it. And even then, I'm not sure they would be. Back at HQ, Jim and Noel celebrate, and Goody comes in for a high five. Wait. Unfortunately, the downside of always being around Noel, sometimes Noel is not around the action. Back at the scene of the crime, Ghosh wanders in, disappointed that the bomb didn't go off. But she tosses the safe away and brings Zeppeli back to life before leaving. Blue notices that Goody isn't showing up, but it's fine, because the Lupin Magnum is here. If you thought you were getting a break from the Magnum, think again. Blue and Yellow launch their own Zords, while the Magnum Kaito changes and they combine. So now the Lupin Magnum, still controlled on its own, has the blue and yellow arms. Blue refers to it as the Lupin Magnum Superior, because the Lupin Magnum is cooler than you. That's right, you, the person listening to this.
It's the real deal.
And you are a child. But for once, the Lupin Magnum won't steal the entire show. Goody arrives with Ichigo and Nigu, so Sangu joins them to form the Pat Kaiser. They then saunter in with Zeppelin's own bomb, which gives Red an idea. He tells Magnum to open Zeppelin's safe, which it can do, being a dial fighter. Lupin Magnum could just solo the rest of the show, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Lupin Magnum's kind of OP.
Bench all of the other characters, give all the experience to Lupin Magnum. It can just, float and be a gun and shoot people, it's fine. The Pat Kaiser then tosses the bomb into the safe, before tossing Zeppelin into space. Lupin Magnum transforms into a large gun and fires, finishing Zeppeli off in what I can only call a Caesar strike. Debris rains in the background as the two robots stand victorious. Back at HQ, Saki is bragging about his cool shot what he did. Tsukasa and Jim are putting up with it. Kaichiro tells him not to get a big head about it, and takes a seat. Noelle wanders in and mentions how nice it is that in this workplace, what with a junior that looks up to his seniors, and the seniors trusting the juniors. But to cap off the episode, Sakia attempts to grab some tea for Kaichiro, only to trip once again, spilling hot tea all over him. This time, there is no saving Sakia from Kaichiro's anger.
Ba-da-bum.
Alright, so that was episode 36. Time for our 10-second discussion on the Ganglar.
He has a funny name and I like his power.
Yeah, I guess
also,
that's okay.
Yeah. They just fucking called him Pecker. That's what the Ganglar of episode 11 should have been called.
But anyway, otherwise he is kind of uninteresting. After a couple of episodes with very strong Ganglar personalities, we're kind of back to a guy that's just sort of there.
Yeah. I do like his power and how it affects the episode, and I like his plan.
He does have a good plan.
But, yeah, he himself just doesn't have the screen presence that any of the past few Ganglars have had.
He has less screen presence than the guy who was just a bashful nerd.
With that, we can talk about the episode itself, and this was why I wanted to talk about early installment weirdness, because this episode feels like it was written by someone who only saw the first 3 episodes of the show.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like a callback to episode 2, because in terms of Sakia's whole developments especially, it just feels like kind of a retread of that.
Yeah, but drawn out with no B-plot to break it up.
Yeah, drawn out, and also, I don't think forced is the right word, but in episode 2, Sakia's mistakes were all his own, but in this episode, his whole thing is, oh no, I don't like being dead weights, specifically because he's under the influence of some Ganglar's power.
Yeah,
so,
and his solution to this is to get Keiichiro to calm down, which is weird, because wouldn't the solution be to make himself better? Yeah, it's just a weird episode, because Keiichiro's not been this mad at Sakia since episode 2.
Yeah, he has
or 3, I think it was 3.
Oh yeah, that's right, episode 3. Episode 2 was, episode 1, continued.
Yeah, we didn't actually see much of the Power Rangers in episode 2, I don't think.
Well, that was the first time seeing the Pat Rangers in action, but other than that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, the only Pat Ranger that isn't weird is Tsukasa.
Yeah.
And that's because she hasn't changed too much.
Yeah, she's just sort of doing her own thing, which happens to be the best thing. This is definitely a Pat Ranger episode, and it sort of explores them all, but Tsukasa is sort of the best of all 3 of them, and Kaichiro's sort of in the middle. Like, he still has anger issues a little bit in, some of the more mid-season episodes, but it does focus a lot
Yeah.
on that in ways that do feel like they're kind of old and, done. Like,
Yeah, like they're playing it for laughs, so maybe they thought they could get away with it. But it's still weird to like hear them make jokes about Keiichiro's anger when he hasn't been that kind of angry for like a score of episodes.
yeah, like if it weren't for elements of the later episodes like Noel and all of the other Dial fighters, then this could have easily been one of the earlier episodes, and it might have actually fit there a little more.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, Keiichiro has a really good relationship with Sakuya. They're very friendly to each other.
Yeah. And
I point out like every single instance of them being friends that I see almost.
yeah. And again, like, the whole thing about Sakuya being under the effects of a Ganglar power is like, I guess it's kind of important that it touches upon the fact that Sakuya doesn't like feeling like dead weight, but again, this does feel like it was more important in episode 3, or that it could have just fit more in the earlier episodes in general, because it's not really his fault.
Yeah, and they couldn't really do this episode without a Ganglar power this late because Saki has established himself as being like the sharpshooter and a very competent member of the team. It'd be weird for him to suddenly start screwing up a lot under his own power.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an awkward episode. Like, it's not bad, it just feels a little bit disjointed.
This feels like the shadow counterpart to, I think, episode 7, Umika's episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a thing where, like, Umika had to deal with a problem that they kind of hinted at but wasn't firmly established before.
Yeah.
But with this, it's like, this is a problem that was established and solved already.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like this episode. It has some really great moments. Sango soloing the Ganglar is pretty good.
Yep.
Putting the bomb inside the Ganglar safe and knocking it into space, amazing.
That ruled.
That's the wacky stuff I need in Sentai.
Yep. But yeah, like, it's weird because I think, in theory, I really like the idea of touching upon some of Sakuya's issues, but I don't know if the episode did them that well, and that, like, he's probably the least interesting point of the episode for me.
Yeah.
Despite being the most prominent emotionally. Like, Kaichiro's kind of one note. Obviously, he's very emotional in this episode, that's the entire point. But it is just Kaiichiro mad. It gets slightly more complex with Sakuya's issues, but even still, Sakuya is just sort of there. In what is the closest thing to a Sakuya episode we've had in a while, Sakuya is probably my least favorite element.
This was like a good episode idea, and it was fun to watch, but I feel like they botched the execution a little.
A little bit, yeah.
Maybe more than a little.
Probably.
I don't know if like this is something that could have been solved with more like script revisions, but maybe. Maybe it just needed a bit more work and polish, or maybe they should have just like started over and did a different script.
Yeah, maybe even just like trying to find a way to display Sakuya's baggage without necessarily just going, he is having moments of incompetence because Ganglar power. Like, give him something that doesn't make him look like a twit for screwing up. And I think it would still be fine for him to have that sort of reaction of, I do not want to screw things up. I want to feel useful.
Yeah. Maybe go back to how he can't deal with overbearing superiors.
Yeah.
Like how he managed to piss off Hilltop's boss a lot in like 5 minutes. Maybe have something like that happen? I don't know.
God, that was such a good episode.
Yeah.
Why can't you have more episodes like that, Sakia?
All right. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at LRVSPR. Fefner is at Fefner Masamune. If you want to email us, you can email us at LupinRecap vs PatReview at gmail.com. And we will see you in the next episode.
Adieu.
Adieu.